The first thing you notice about the Maine coast in November isn't the cold, though it bites deep enough to rattle your teeth. It's the sound. The endless, rhythmic sigh and crash of the Atlantic against the ancient, stubborn granite. A sound that seeps into your bones, a constant reminder of something vast and untamable just beyond your fragile warmth. That's where I found myself, adrift at 33, when the silence of my empty apartment in Portland became louder than any ocean roar. A failed engagement, a career stalled like a beached skiff. I'd traded spreadsheets for stocking shelves at Murphy's General Store in the tiny, wind-whipped village of Havens Point. Solitude felt like the only logical harbor. Then I met Silas Thorne. He wasn't introduced, he simply appeared. One iron gray afternoon, battling a rogue gust that threatened to tear the grocery list from my frozen fingers, a hand steadied the flapping paper. Large, capable, weathered by salt and wind. I looked up, startled, into eyes the color of storm-tossed seawater, deep, shifting green-gray, holding a quiet intensity that momentarily stilled the frantic world around me. "Rough one out there," he said, his voice a low rumble, almost lost beneath the wind's howl. It wasn't just the timbre. It held the weight of someone accustomed to listening more than speaking, to the sea's language more than human chatter. Just trying not to become a permanent fixture on the breakwater, I managed, my cheeks burning from more than the cold. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. "Silas Thorne, keeper up at Sentinel Light." He nodded towards the distant, skeletal white finger pointing defiantly skyward on the far headland. "Elara Vance," I stammered. "New, well, temporary, resident. Shelf stalker." That was it. A meeting brief as a lighthouse flash. But something in his steady gaze, the quiet competence radiating from him, anchored me in that chaotic moment. I learned about Silas piecemeal, like fragments of sea glass polished by gossip. 41. Had taken over the Sentinel Light keeper duties from his father a decade prior. Lived alone in the keeper's cottage, a man married to the sea and the rhythm of the light. Respected, a little remote, known for his uncanny ability to predict squalls and his quiet acts of kindness, mending a fisherman's net before dawn, rescuing a stranded hiker caught by the tide. My path crossed his more often than chance should allow. He'd come into Murphy's for supplies, kerosene, sturdy gloves, thick wool socks. We'd exchange a few words, always practical, always tinged with that quiet watchfulness. I started lingering near the window when the afternoon light began to fade, watching the powerful beam of Sentinel Light carve its reassuring arc across the darkening water. It felt like a connection, however faint. The shift happened on a night of near supernatural stillness. An unnerving calm had settled over Havens Point, the sea oily smooth under a bruised purple sky. A sense of foreboding prickled my skin. I was walking back from a late shift, the silence so complete I could hear my own heartbeat. Then a sound cut through it, a desperate, rhythmic clanging, like metal on metal, coming from the direction of the headland. Silas. Instinct propelled me forward, my feet finding the rough path in the gloom. The clanging grew louder, frantic. I rounded the bend to see the lighthouse dark. Utterly, terrifyingly dark. Silas was on the gallery, a silhouette against the eerie sky, hammering something on the railing with a wrench, his movements sharp with panic. "Silas," I called out, my voice swallowed by the vast silence. He spun around. Even in the dimness, I saw the stark fear on his face, quickly replaced by a surge of relief when he recognized me. "Elara." Thank God. The main mechanisms jammed. The backup generators flooded from last week's storm. The aurora is due any minute, hugging the coast in this fog. His voice was tight, urgent. The aurora was the weekly supply ferry, vital for the island communities further out. He didn't ask, he simply commanded with a desperate hope. Can you crank the manual override winch inside the lamp room? I need both hands free here. I scrambled up the spiral stairs, heart pounding. Inside the glass-paned lamp room, the massive, intricate Fresnel lens loomed, cold and dormant. Beside it, an iron winch handle protruded from the floor. Silas shouted instructions from outside, his voice strained but clear. Turn it clockwise. Slow and steady. It powers the rotation. I gripped the cold iron. It was heavy, resistant. I threw my weight against it. Groan. Creak. The massive lens assembly shuddered. Inch by agonizing inch, I turned the handle, muscles screaming, sweat beading on my forehead despite the chill. Below, Silas hammered and cursed, the sound mingling with the rhythmic clunk of the winch engaging. Minutes stretched like hours. My arms felt like lead, my breath ragged. Just as despair threatened to swamp me, a spark, a sputter, then a low hum vibrated through the tower. The great lamp flickered, then blazed with brilliant, life-saving light. Its beam sliced through the thickening fog, a silent scream of warning. Silas burst into the lamp room, his face streaked with grease, eyes wide with adrenaline and relief. He didn't speak. He crossed the space in 2 strides, wrapped his arms around me in a crushing embrace, lifting me slightly off my feet. I felt the frantic beat of his heart against mine, the tremor in his strong arms, the scent of salt and oil and him. You did it, Elara, he breathed into my hair, his voice thick. You saved them. You saved the light. He set me down gently, his hands lingering on my shoulders. The world outside ceased to exist. There was only the hum of the light, the frantic energy still crackling between us, and his stormy eyes searching mine. He cupped my face, callous thumb brushing my cheekbone, a touch so tender it stole my breath. Then, slowly, deliberately, he leaned down and pressed his lips to mine. Not a demand, but a question, a profound gratitude, a spark igniting in the darkness. It was a gentle kiss, salty and real, sealing a pact forged in shared panic and triumph. The lighthouse beam, our silent witness, swept across the vast, indifferent sea. That night changed everything. The remote keeper became my anchor. Our world became the windswept headland, the rhythmic light, the cozy keeper's cottage smelling of wood smoke, strong tea, and old books. We discovered shared silences that spoke volumes, curled together on the worn sofa listening to scratchy vinyl records, him favoring mournful sea shanties, me leaning towards soulful blues. We talked for hours, about the constellations he navigated by, the ships he'd tracked, the loneliness of the light before me. I shared my broken pieces, my fear of failure, the ache of a life adrift. He listened, truly listened, his gaze holding mine like a lifeline. He wasn't overtly romantic in the traditional sense. His gestures were quiet, profound. Finding a perfect piece of sea glass smoothed by the tide, the color of your eyes in sunlight, he'd murmur, pressing it into my palm. Fixing the leaky tap in my tiny rented room without being asked. Waking me before dawn to witness the sunrise painting the ocean in impossible shades of rose and gold, his arms solid around my waist, my head resting against his shoulder. His hugs were havens, strong and encompassing, shutting out the world's chill. One blustery spring afternoon, he led me up the winding stairs, past the lamp room, to a small, dusty attic space tucked beneath the lantern roof. It was filled with old charts, discarded parts, the smell of time and salt. He pushed open a narrow, salt-crusted window. "Look," he whispered. Below, the angry sea churned, whitecaps like shattered teeth. But above the roiling gray clouds, the sky was clearing to a breathtaking, deep cerulean. And as the sun dipped lower, the first brave stars began to pierce the twilight. "It's easy to only see the storm, Elara," he said softly, drawing me close, his chin resting on my head. "To focus on the waves crashing down below. But sometimes you have to climb above it. To find the stillness, the light waiting just beyond the clouds." He turned me gently to face him. "You are my stillness, Elara. My light beyond the storm." I never knew quiet could feel this full. He didn't ask me to move informally. It happened like the tide, inevitable, natural. My sparse belongings migrated to the cottage. My presence became woven into the fabric of his solitary life. I learned the keeper's rhythms, trimming wicks, polishing brass, logging weather, the nightly vigil ensuring the light never faltered. We found joy in the mundane, cooking simple meals together, reading aloud by the fire, walking the headland wrapped against the wind, our gloved hands entwined. He gifted me an old ship's lantern, meticulously restored. "For the darkest nights when I'm up top," he said, his eyes serious. "So you'll always have a light, wherever you are in the cottage. So you'll know I'm thinking of you, even when I'm tending the big one." That lantern sat on my bedside table, its warm, steady glow a constant reassurance, a small sun in our private universe. We had 2 years. 2 years of salt-kissed bliss, of profound understanding that needed few words, of love that felt as elemental and enduring as the granite beneath the lighthouse. We spoke of the future, maybe a small boat, coastal trips when he could get relief keepers, growing old watching the light together. We folded time into our shared moments, believing we had an ocean of it. The first shadow fell subtly. A fatigue that lingered longer than usual after hauling supplies. A bruise on his arm that seemed reluctant to fade. He brushed it off. "Just getting older, Elara. The sea takes its toll." But the keeper who could predict squalls couldn't see the storm brewing within himself. The diagnosis was a rogue wave crashing over our carefully built world. Acute myeloid leukemia. Aggressive. The words in the sterile Portland hospital room sounded like a foreign, cruel language. The vibrant, capable man who scaled lighthouse stairs without a second thought was suddenly pale, fragile in a hospital gown. The storm in his eyes wasn't the sea's fury anymore. It was a dawning horror, a fear I'd never seen in him before. The battle was brutal. Chemotherapy became our new, unwelcome rhythm, replacing the comforting pulse of the lighthouse beam. Weeks bled into months. Silas fought with the same quiet tenacity he used to fix the light mechanism. He rarely complained, focusing his waning strength on small moments, holding my hand, listening to the sea on a recording I brought, tracing the pattern of the ship's lantern light on the hospital ceiling. We brought him home to Sentinel Light when the doctors said there was nothing more they could do. The relief keepers ensured the great light never wavered. Our world shrank to the cottage, the view of the relentless sea, and the encroaching shadow. One surprisingly mild October evening, he was having a rare moment of clarity and strength. He asked me to help him outside. Wrapped in blankets, leaning heavily on me, we made it to the bench overlooking the sea. The Sentinel Light swept its majestic arc above us, painting the waves with fleeting silver. The sky was ablaze with stars, clearer than I'd ever seen them. The Milky Way spilled across the vast black canvas like luminous foam. "Remember the attic?" he whispered, his voice thin but clear. "Above the storm." I nodded, unable to speak, clutching his hand tightly, memorizing the feel of his skin, the shape of his knuckles. "Look up, my love," he breathed. So much light, even in the dark. He turned his head slowly, his storm-gray eyes finding mine, holding them with an intensity that pierced my soul. You showed me how to see it." He raised his free hand, trembling, to cut my cheek, his thumb brushing away a tear I hadn't felt fall. "My Elara, my brightest star." He drew me closer. His kiss was featherlight, a whisper against my lips, holding the salt of my tears and the immeasurable weight of our love and our ending. It was a goodbye, a blessing, a final anchoring touch. He rested his forehead against mine, his breath a faint sigh against my skin. "Keep the lantern lit," he murmured. Then, gazing out at the star-strewn sea, held safe in my arms, Silas Thorne, keeper of the light, simply went out, like a flame caught by a sudden, final gust. His body relaxed against mine, his head resting gently on my shoulder, his eyes fixed on the distant horizon he'd watched over for so long. The silence that followed wasn't the silence of the sea. It was the silence of the universe holding its breath. The great light continued its tireless sweep above us, indifferent, eternal. The waves crashed below, their rhythm unchanged. The world kept turning, but mine shattered. I held him as the night deepened, as his skin grew cold beneath my touch. I held him until the first pale streaks of dawn touched the eastern sky, mirroring the path his soul had surely taken. The ship's lantern still glowed softly from the cottage window, a small, defiant light against the encroaching day, a promise I would keep. They came eventually. The relief keeper, the doctor, kind voices murmuring condolences that sounded like waves crashing far away. They took him, my Silas, who had been my harbor, my light, my profound and unexpected love. I stayed at Sentinel Light. I couldn't leave. The relief keepers handle the mechanics now, but I tend the cottage, the memories. I walk the headland, the wind whipping my hair, the taste of salt forever on my lips. I climb to the attic sometimes, above the storm, and look at the stars, feeling the vast, aching emptiness where his warmth used to be. The ship's lantern still burns every night on my bedside table. Its light is softer now, perhaps, but steady. It's not just a light, it's a vigil, a testament, a reminder that even the brightest lights can be extinguished by a shadow unseen, that the deepest love stories sometimes have the most shattering final chapters. I hear his voice sometimes on the wind, in the crash of the waves. "Keep the lantern lit, Elara." So I do. I keep it lit. For the ships at sea. For the memory of the keeper who loved me amidst the granite and the gales. For the profound, echoing silence left by a love as deep and enduring as the ocean itself, and as tragically, beautifully finite. The light persists. The love endures. And the ache is the price of having held something so luminous, so briefly, against the vast, indifferent dark.